At shrines across Japan, small wooden boxes rattle as hands shake sticks that reveal hidden fates. Each slender stick carries a number, matched to folded paper slips called Omikuji, fortune-telling charms. The slip may promise great blessing or warn of misfortune, leaving hearts racing with hope or fear. To outsiders, it looks like a quaint ritual, yet for centuries it has shaped prayers and choices in Japan. Imagine a festival crowd, lanterns glowing where young couples laugh nervously while drawing their fortunes. A slip predicting success in exams is tied to branches, fluttering beside others that plead for love or health. The sound of rustling paper creates a chorus, as if thousands of voices whisper prayers into the night. Omikuji are more than predictions. They are mirrors of collective hopes, fears, and the longing for guidance. This practice fuses religion, chants, and culture, making a simple paper slip a vessel of meaning across eras. And behind every drawn slip lies a deeper story of shrines, rituals, and a nation's evolving spiritual life.
In Kyoto's Kiyomizu-dera, tourists line up, curious whether fate will favor them with luck or caution. At Tokyo's Sensoji, crowds surge beneath the red gate, eager to shake the box and test destiny's hand. Omikuji slips vary from great blessing to great curse, a spectrum that can stir joy, fear, or disbelief. Some smile and pocket their fortune, while others tie the slip to a rack, hoping to leave bad luck behind. The ritual blends belief and theater, turning simple gestures into shared spectacles of chance and faith. A mother may draw guidance for her child's studies, while an elder prays for strength against illness. Lovers sometimes compare fortunes, teasing each other if predictions of harmony or discord appear. The slips are not mere paper, they are performances of destiny staged in shrines across Japan. For centuries, priests and worshippers alike trusted Omikuji as voices of divine will guiding daily life. Yet even today, whether in solemn temples or lively festivals, Omikuji remain alive in modern Japan. On New Year's morning, shrines overflow with visitors, each hand reaching for Omikuji as a yearly compass. The slips echo ancient prayers, binding the present generation to rituals that began centuries ago. Students clutch fortunes that promise exam success, while merchants seek words predicting thriving business. Soldiers once drew Omikuji before campaigns, reading divine approval or caution in fragile paper lines. In legends, even emperors consulted Omikuji, treating slips as voices of the kami guiding state affairs. Today, digital apps mimic the ritual, offering fortunes on screens, proof that tradition adapts and survives. Still, the essence remains unchanged: to seek certainty in uncertainty and to hear destiny whisper. Crowds linger, comparing fortunes, their laughter and sighs weaving a human chorus around sacred grounds. Omikuji are stories in miniature, tiny texts that mirror vast emotions of a nation across time. As the slips flutter in the wind, they invite us to ask, what do we truly seek from the divine? The earliest roots of Omikuji trace back to the Heian period, when divination guided both court and shrine. Records suggest priests consulted divine lots to determine policies, battles, or even imperial succession. These lots were not casual amusements, but solemn acts believed to reveal the will of the kami. In Shinto tradition, the unseen world was consulted through ritual, binding human fate to divine intention. By the Kamakura period, Omikuji spread beyond elites, reaching commoners who sought guidance in daily struggles. Shrines offered slips inscribed with Buddhist sutra passages, blending Shinto practice with imported doctrine. This hybrid practice revealed Japan's cultural pattern, adopting foreign elements while keeping native beliefs intact. Some accounts claim Omikuji were first used in Buddhist temples, then gradually adopted by Shinto shrines. Others argue the practice began in shrines and only later absorbed Buddhist imagery, showing competing origins. Either way, by medieval Japan, Omikuji had become a familiar tool, linking people's choices to sacred authority. During festivals, villagers approached shrine boxes not just for fortune, but as acts of community faith. The slips became symbols of belonging, uniting people in shared rituals that reinforced local identity. Illustrated Imakemono scrolls depict commoners drawing lots, proof that the practice had entered popular culture. By the Edo period, Omikuji were standardized. Boxes, numbered sticks, and written fortunes became recognizable forms. Print culture spread the practice, with woodblock prints showing bustling shrine courtyards filled with fortune seekers. Merchants sold illustrated fortune guides, blending entertainment with piety, commerce with devotion. For the first time, fortunes became portable souvenirs, folded papers carried home as tangible divine advice. Scholars debate whether this commercialization diluted meaning or ensured survival through broader appeal. Either perspective highlights the adaptability of Omikuji, shifting roles while staying tied to sacred contexts. By early modern Japan, Omikuji were both playful diversions and serious guides, embodying cultural duality. With the dawn of the Meiji era, Japan faced modernization, and shrines adapted Omikuji to shifting society. The Meiji government separated Shinto and Buddhism, yet Omikuji survived as shared heritage between both. Shrines reframed fortunes as moral guidance, aligning with state ideology that emphasized loyalty and diligence. Texts shifted from Buddhist sutras to nationalist phrases, signaling how religion served modern political needs. Some scholars argue this politicization diluted spiritual meaning, turning Omikuji into tools of propaganda. Others counter that moral lessons ensured survival, allowing Omikuji to remain relevant in daily life. By the Taisho period, commercial printing expanded fortunes, producing mass editions distributed at major shrines. Visitors could now encounter standardized fonts and layouts, reflecting industrial efficiency entering sacred practice. Photographs from the era show shrine stalls stacked with paper fortunes, hinting at rising demand and ritual scale. Omikuji thus mirrored Japan's transformation, balancing sacred ritual with modern commerce and state agendas. During wartime, Omikuji were drawn by soldiers and families, seeking divine reassurance amid national crisis. Fortunes promising victory boosted morale, while warnings of hardship echoed fears already present in society. Reports suggest some shrines selectively emphasized favorable fortunes, shaping public sentiment through ritualized hope. After Japan's defeat in 1945, Omikuji remained, stripped of militarist tones, reverting to personal destiny. In post-war rebuilding, fortunes shifted to everyday concerns: health, exams, romance, and business prosperity. Omikuji thus transitioned from instruments of state to mirrors of private anxieties and hopes. Sociologists note this adaptability as key to continuity, linking ancient ritual with contemporary relevance. By the 1960s, Omikuji were fixtures at shrines and temples entwined with tourism and mass culture. Guidebooks for foreign visitors explain the ritual, marking Omikuji as both exotic attraction and spiritual practice. Thus, from Meiji reforms to post-war society, Omikuji endured, shifting shape while holding symbolic authority. By the late 20th century, Omikuji had become entwined with tourism, drawing millions to shrines annually. Tour buses arrived at famous sites like Ise-jingu and Fushimi Inari, where visitors lined up for fortunes. Souvenir shops sold Omikuji charms shaped as arrows, bells, or animal figures linked to zodiac years. The variety transformed fortunes from paper slips into collectibles, merging commerce with sacred tradition. Foreign tourists encountered Omikuji as exotic rituals, often photographing tied slips fluttering like white blossoms. Guidebooks encouraged participation, translating fortunes into English, French, and Chinese for international visitors. Scholars note this globalization shifted Omikuji from local ritual to cultural export consumed worldwide. Some priests embraced this role, presenting Omikuji as ambassadors of Japanese spirituality to foreign audiences. Others worried commercialization trivialized sacred meaning, reducing prayer to a spectacle for tourists' cameras. Yet the ritual persisted, showing resilience by adapting forms while retaining its symbolic authority. In the digital age, Omikuji appeared on websites and smartphone apps, offering instant fortunes at a click. Some shrines created QR-coded slips, blending ancient paper rituals with modern information technology. Anime and manga featured Omikuji scenes, embedding the ritual into Japan's global pop culture footprint. Characters tied unlucky slips to trees, teaching audiences abroad the symbolism of leaving misfortune behind. Scholars debate whether such media popularization deepens understanding or reduces Omikuji to mere aesthetic tropes. Meanwhile, domestic youth still draw Omikuji during shrine visits, proving continuity despite modern distractions. At New Year's, crowds flock to Meiji Jingu, showing Omikuji's enduring role in collective spiritual practice. The practice now bridges worlds, sacred and secular, local and global, ancient ritual and digital novelty. Omikuji thus stands as a cultural survivor, reshaped by commerce, politics, and media, yet never disappearing. Its journey from Heian courtyards to smartphone screens shows how tradition reinvents itself to endure. By the late 20th century, sociologists examined Omikuji as windows into collective psychology and ritual behavior. Studies highlighted how drawing fortunes gave participants a sense of agency amid uncertainty. Anthropologists compared Omikuji to practices in China, Korea, and Europe, noting universal patterns of divination. Japanese scholars debated whether Omikuji should be classified primarily as religion, entertainment, or social custom. Some emphasized its spiritual roots, tying it to Shinto ritual purity and Buddhist karmic belief. Others stressed its role as leisure, noting visitors often drew fortunes casually during festivals. A minority view argued Omikuji functioned mainly as social glue, fostering dialogue and shared experiences. Academic journals documented how Omikuji evolved differently in urban and rural shrines. Urban centers emphasized speed and convenience, while rural sites preserved slower, more communal rituals. These contrasts reveal how one practice adapted to diverse social environments without losing identity. In the 21st century, Omikuji became subjects of museum exhibitions on Japanese spirituality and folk culture. Institutions like the National Museum of Japanese History curated displays of Edo period fortune slips. Such exhibitions framed Omikuji not only as living practices, but also as cultural heritage worth preservation. Academic conferences invited priests, historians, and sociologists to debate its evolving significance. Some argued Omikuji illustrates Japan's capacity to absorb change while preserving symbolic continuity. Others warned that commodification risks reducing sacredness, turning faith into souvenir culture. International scholars noted parallels with fortune cookies, tarot, and horoscopes, situating Omikuji globally. This comparative lens reframed Omikuji as part of a worldwide human search for destiny and meaning. Museums and media together ensured Omikuji would be studied, displayed, and reimagined for future audiences. Thus, scholarship and exhibition turned Omikuji into both object of devotion and object of knowledge. In contemporary Japan, Omikuji exist at nearly every major shrine, forming part of the nation's ritual landscape. Annual surveys report millions of fortunes drawn during New Year visits, confirming the practice's vitality. Urban shrines provide multilingual instructions, showing adaptation to global tourism and multicultural audiences. Rural sites emphasize continuity, where elders explain Omikuji meanings to younger generations. Omikuji thus bridge old and new, linking ancestral customs with today's urban consumer culture. Some slips now feature illustrations of anime characters, reflecting fusion of pop media and tradition. Priests defend such innovations as ways to keep youth engaged with sacred spaces. Critics warn that playful designs risk trivializing the ritual, eroding reverence for divine will. Regardless, these debates highlight Omikuji's resilience. Its form changes, but its cultural presence endures. Every tide slip, whether plain or colorful, adds a voice to the collective conversation with the divine. Beyond shrines, Omikuji have entered secular spaces, appearing in shopping malls, amusement parks, and airports. Machines dispense fortunes for coins, transforming sacred ritual into casual entertainment for passers-by. Some see this diffusion as proof of cultural vitality, keeping Omikuji relevant in everyday environments. Others lament the loss of solemnity, fearing the practice risks becoming detached from sacred roots. International airports display Omikuji kiosks as cultural showcases, presenting Japan's tradition to global travelers. In popular media, fortune-drawing scenes symbolize choice, chance, and the delicate balance of destiny. Documentaries and dramas use Omikuji as narrative devices, reinforcing its role as cultural metaphor. Thus, Omikuji today exists in dual form: sacred guidance at shrines, playful motif in popular culture. This duality explains its longevity, for it can satisfy both spiritual longing and casual curiosity. From ancient courts to vending machines, Omikuji's journey illustrates how tradition survives through reinvention.
Omikuji are more than fortune slips. They are mirrors of collective hopes, channeling emotions into ritual form. Drawing a slip creates a moment of suspense, where uncertainty becomes shared experience among strangers. For many, Omikuji embody the idea that destiny can be glimpsed, if only for an instant. Psychologists suggest the act offers comfort, giving agency when life feels unpredictable. At shrines, tying unlucky slips to branches transforms private fear into a visible act of release. The fluttering paper becomes collective art, a forest of prayers that blends sound, sight, and faith. Omikuji also serve as teaching tools, reminding youth of virtues like patience, humility, and perseverance. Families often draw together, turning fortune reading into intergenerational dialogue and bonding. Thus, Omikuji act as social glue, reinforcing ties not only with the divine but also within communities. Scholars note this layered function, balancing religion, psychology, and society in one simple ritual. Omikuji's symbolic power lies in its ambiguity. Fortune and misfortune coexist, reflecting life's dual nature. A great blessing inspires courage, while a great curse provokes reflection, both shaping personal decisions. This duality ensures Omikuji resonate across cultures, for all societies wrestle with fate and chance. In festivals, drawing fortunes becomes spectacle, reinforcing identity as participants join in shared drama. Sociologists observe that laughter over lucky slips and sighs over unlucky ones weave social empathy. Omikuji thus becomes small stories, carried home in pockets, retold to friends, woven into memory. Over time, these stories build cultural archives, informal yet powerful records of people's desires and fears. For priests, Omikuji offered teaching moments, translating divine messages into everyday advice. For worshippers, they are bridges between sacred and secular, blending ritual awe with practical guidance. This layered significance explains why Omikuji endure, surviving modernization while retaining symbolic weight. Omikuji appear frequently in Japanese literature, where writers use fortunes to symbolize chance and destiny. Edo period haiku referenced fluttering slips, linking natural imagery with human uncertainty. In modern novels, characters draw fortunes that foreshadow personal struggles or relationships. Playwrights used Omikuji on stage as dramatic devices, signaling fate to both actors and audience. In poetry, a tied slip symbolizes longing, fluttering in wind like fragile human emotions. Artists painted shrine scenes filled with paper slips, presenting Omikuji as visual metaphors of hope. Ukiyo-e prints depicted lively courtyards where Omikuji contributed to the festive spectacle. Contemporary manga portray students drawing fortunes during shrine visits, echoing centuries of tradition. Anime often dramatize unlucky slips, turning small misfortunes into humor or lessons for characters. Through these media, Omikuji became cultural shorthand, instantly recognizable as symbols of fate. Beyond art, Omikuji carry symbolic weight in everyday speech, where drawing a bad lot means misfortune. Phrases like big blessing are used metaphorically in politics, sports, and business commentary. Advertisers adopt Omikuji imagery, promising consumers luck or success through products and campaigns. Fashion designers have printed Omikuji motifs on fabrics, blending sacred iconography with modern style. Some critics argue this diffusion dilutes meaning, reducing Omikuji to decorative patterns. Others see it as cultural resilience, proving tradition can thrive when integrated into new contexts. International films feature Omikuji to signify Japaneseness, framing them as icons of national identity. This cinematic shorthand ensures audiences abroad instantly recognize the scene as culturally Japanese. Thus, Omikuji occupy multiple symbolic layers: artistic, linguistic, commercial, and national. Their persistence shows how a simple ritual object can radiate meaning far beyond the shrine. For Shinto priests, Omikuji are conduits of divine will, translating kami's voice into tangible guidance. The ritual reinforces the belief that human life is interwoven with unseen spiritual forces. Buddhist temples interpret Omikuji through karma, suggesting fortunes mirror one's past deeds. This dual reading, Shinto destiny and Buddhist karma, shows Japan's layered religious landscape. Philosophers argue Omikuji dramatize uncertainty, teaching acceptance of life's impermanence. Some scholars link the practice to existential thought, where chance reveals the fragility of choice. Omikuji's ambiguity embodies wabi-sabi aesthetics, beauty found in imperfection and transience. A slip predicting misfortune may not doom one's future, but instead inspire humility and caution. This reinterpretation transforms Omikuji into ethical tools, shaping behavior beyond ritual space. Thus, Omikuji function at multiple levels: spiritual, moral, and philosophical, within Japanese culture. Modern priests often remind worshippers that Omikuji are guidance, not fixed destiny, balancing hope with caution. This message reflects a cultural emphasis on self-improvement rather than passive fatalism. In this way, Omikuji harmonize freedom and fate, suggesting destiny is shaped through response. Some temples print explanations urging worshippers to treat bad luck as opportunities for growth. Scholars see this as practical philosophy, where ritual aligns with everyday ethics. Comparative studies show parallels to Stoicism, where fortune is met with resilience and calm. Others compare Omikuji to Christian prayer or Islamic istikhara, all seeking divine guidance. These cross-cultural parallels reveal Omikuji's universal appeal, the desire to anchor choices in meaning. Thus, Omikuji not only preserve Japan's tradition, but also echo humanity's timeless spiritual search. Their endurance proves that rituals thrive when they balance sacred belief with philosophical depth. Omikuji rituals foster social interaction, where strangers compare fortunes and exchange laughter or sympathy. This casual dialogue transforms shrines into spaces of spontaneous community building. Families gather at New Year to draw together, turning private rituals into collective bonding. Couples use Omikuji as playful tests of compatibility, weaving romance into sacred practice. School groups visit shrines where students compare fortunes, blending education with ritual experience. Such interactions reveal Omikuji as cultural scripts guiding social roles and shared narratives. In local festivals, Omikuji stalls become gathering points, reinforcing community identity. Elderly participants explain meanings to youth, transmitting tradition through lived social practice. Sociologists describe this as ritualized conversation, where destiny becomes topic for bonding. Thus, Omikuji's power lies not only in prediction, but in the relationships it helps cultivate. Public spaces beyond shrines also host Omikuji, such as department stores staging New Year fortune events. These events transform commercial zones into temporary ritual arenas of shared participation. Media often broadcast fortune-drawing scenes, turning private rituals into national spectacles. Popular TV shows invite celebrities to draw Omikuji, merging entertainment with sacred symbolism. Sociologists argue these broadcasts democratize ritual, making sacred practices accessible to wider audiences. Others warn they risk trivializing faith, reducing Omikuji to comedic or commercial content. Community groups sometimes host Omikuji-themed charity events, channeling ritual into civic good. These adaptations show Omikuji's flexibility, moving between sacred, social, and civic domains. Through such practices, Omikuji remain embedded in both intimate family life and mass culture. Its role as shared ritual proves culture endures by linking private meaning with public performance. Omikuji embody cultural continuity, reminding Japanese society that the search for guidance is timeless. Each slip, whether hopeful or foreboding, becomes part of a collective archive of emotions. The ritual links daily struggles, exams, business, love, to a broader spiritual framework. This connection elevates personal anxiety into shared meaning, offering cultural reassurance. In this sense, Omikuji act as cultural therapy, ritualizing uncertainty into manageable form. Scholars argue that this process fosters resilience, teaching acceptance and adaptability. At national scale, Omikuji reinforce identity, presenting tradition as living part of modern Japan. Foreign observers often cite Omikuji as symbols of Japanese spirituality and cultural uniqueness. Thus, the practice extends beyond religion, representing cultural diplomacy and soft power contexts. Omikuji, then, serve as both personal ritual and emblem of Japan's cultural brand abroad. Museums and tourism boards highlight Omikuji in campaigns, framing them as icons of tradition and charm. Travel posters show fluttering slips against shrine backdrops, selling emotion alongside destination. This branding makes Omikuji global symbols, consumed as much for imagery as for practice. Scholars debate whether such export simplifies tradition, stripping nuance for international audiences. Yet simplification itself ensures accessibility, allowing rituals to travel across cultural boundaries. For Japanese youth, Omikuji remain touchstones of identity, bridging heritage with modern lifestyle. For elders, they preserve continuity, embodying prayers once spoken by ancestors. This generational dialogue proves Omikuji function as living heritage, not static relics. Ultimately, Omikuji symbolize how tradition survives by balancing sacred meaning and cultural utility. Their endurance confirms culture thrives when it adapts, resonates, and invites participation. In contemporary Japan, shrines face the challenge of preserving Omikuji while adapting to modern society. Priests safeguard rituals by maintaining traditional formats of fortune slips and tying practices. At the same time, new methods such as digital printing ensure mass production for rising demand. Urban shrines develop bilingual instructions, allowing tourists to engage while preserving authenticity. Rural shrines rely on community volunteers to sustain the practice, emphasizing intergenerational teaching. Educational programs introduce Omikuji to school children, framing it as part of cultural heritage. Some shrines collaborate with universities, inviting researchers to study ritual meaning and visitor responses. This academic involvement helps preserve Omikuji not only as custom, but as a subject of knowledge. Museums curate exhibitions on Omikuji, displaying historical slips alongside contemporary examples. These efforts create bridges between tradition, scholarship, and public awareness. Preservation also means adapting formats, such as waterproof slips to withstand outdoor weather. Shrines experiment with recyclable materials, aligning Omikuji with environmental sustainability. Some communities develop digital archives, scanning slips to document evolving designs and messages. These archives preserve memory beyond the fragile paper, ensuring cultural longevity. Technology firms partner with shrines, offering smartphone apps that simulate the fortune-drawing ritual. Critics warn digitalization risks detaching Omikuji from sacred context, reducing depth of experience. Supporters argue these tools attract youth, ensuring continuity in rapidly changing society. Internationally, shrines ship Omikuji sets abroad, allowing diaspora communities to maintain practice. This transnational transmission shows Omikuji's role as both spiritual practice and cultural export. Preservation, then, involves both continuity of form and innovation of medium. Preservation of Omikuji involves institutional actors, from local shrines to national organizations. The Association of Shinto Shrines provides guidelines on fortune slip production and ritual integrity. These guidelines ensure slips retain standardized prayers while allowing local variation. Government cultural agencies classify Omikuji as part of intangible cultural heritage. This classification secures funding for preservation projects, including archival and educational programs. Universities partner with shrines to document oral histories of priests who oversee Omikuji rituals. These records preserve knowledge, otherwise vulnerable to generational loss. Nonprofit organizations create workshops teaching communities about Omikuji's cultural importance. Such workshops highlight Omikuji not only as ritual practice, but as shared cultural heritage. Together, these institutions build frameworks where tradition is protected through coordinated effort. Local governments sponsor festivals featuring Omikuji, linking cultural preservation with regional tourism. These events attract visitors while reinforcing community pride in local shrines. Educational ministries support curriculum modules on Omikuji, framing them as history and ethics lessons. Some scholars question whether institutionalization risks freezing Omikuji, reducing organic evolution. Others argue oversight is necessary, ensuring sacred rituals withstand commercialization. Internationally, Japanese embassies include Omikuji in cultural exhibitions, projecting soft power. These exhibitions frame Omikuji as heritage items alongside tea ceremony or calligraphy. Cultural diplomacy thus elevates Omikuji as ambassadors of Japanese identity abroad. Institutional support ensures continuity, proving traditions endure when embedded in policy and culture. Omikuji's survival today reflects collaboration between shrines, state, and global networks. Commercialization has reshaped Omikuji, with themed designs sold as souvenirs beyond shrine grounds. Shops offer fortunes printed on charms, keychains, and even confectionery packaging. These products blurred lines between sacred ritual and consumer novelty. Critics argue that such trends trivialize faith, reducing divine messages to merchandise. Supporters counter that commercialization funds shrines and keeps Omikuji visible to the public. Tourism industries embrace Omikuji branding, using its imagery in advertisements and campaigns. Some travel companies design Omikuji tours, guiding visitors through rituals as cultural experiences. This packaging turns tradition into marketable entertainment, sparking debate on authenticity. Priests often walk a fine line, balancing sacred duties with economic survival. These tensions reveal the complexity of sustaining rituals in a consumer-driven society. Digital innovation further complicates preservation, as online platforms offer instant virtual Omikuji. Smartphone apps simulate rituals with animations, sound effects, and shareable results. Critics claim this strips Omikuji of atmosphere, detaching it from shrine context. Supporters argue apps democratize access, letting diaspora and youth engage with tradition. Some shrines themselves develop official apps, ensuring authenticity in digital format. Hybrid rituals now exist, where visitors draw physical slips but scan QR codes for explanations. This blending shows tradition's adaptability, merging old rituals with modern tools. For many practitioners, innovation is survival, ensuring Omikuji remains relevant in daily life. The future of Omikuji likely depends on balancing sacred depth with commercial and digital demands. Omikuji have crossed borders, appearing at Japanese cultural festivals worldwide. At events in New York or Paris, visitors eagerly draw fortunes from recreated shrine stalls. These stalls replicate rituals with wooden boxes and folded slips, offering authentic experience. Organizers frame Omikuji as entry points into Japanese spirituality and aesthetics. International audiences interpret fortunes as playful encounters with Japanese culture. Some participants treat Omikuji as souvenirs rather than sacred objects. Priests traveling abroad sometimes oversee rituals, ensuring cultural accuracy and sacred context. This practice strengthens diaspora ties, linking overseas communities to homeland traditions. Cultural exchanges also occur in classrooms, where Omikuji are used to teach Japanese customs. Thus, Omikuji serve as cultural ambassadors, bridging Japan with global audiences. Omikuji also appear in museums abroad, displayed as artifacts of Japanese religion and folklore. Exhibits contextualize them alongside Shinto rituals, Buddhist art, and seasonal festivals. Some curators emphasize design aesthetics, treating Omikuji as examples of graphic culture. Others highlight their narrative function, showing fortunes as miniature moral tales. Academic collaborations link Japanese and foreign universities in comparative studies of divination. These projects situate Omikuji in global contexts, alongside tarot, runes, or astrology. Some scholars caution against exoticizing Omikuji as mystical curiosities. Instead, they advocate framing Omikuji as living traditions with evolving meanings. This perspective encourages respectful cultural exchange, avoiding simplification or distortion. International transmission thus preserves Omikuji while situating them within humanity's shared search for meaning. The preservation of Omikuji today reflects an ongoing negotiation between tradition and change. Shrines aim to retain spiritual depth while adapting rituals to modern lifestyles. Youth engagement is crucial as younger generations decide whether practices remain relevant. Schools and families play roles in framing Omikuji as more than tourist activities. Elders emphasize moral lessons and fortunes, using slips as teaching moments. Priests innovate cautiously, balancing sacred continuity with financial sustainability. NGOs advocate Omikuji as part of Japan's intangible heritage, raising awareness abroad. Global recognition strengthens legitimacy, framing Omikuji as symbols of shared humanity. Critics warn against over-branding, which risks commodifying spiritual heritage. Yet, adaptability remains key, ensuring Omikuji survive as both sacred and cultural practices. International scholars highlight Omikuji as case studies in cultural resilience. They note how rituals endure by reshaping form while preserving symbolic meaning. This lesson resonates beyond Japan, offering insights for preserving traditions worldwide. Omikuji's survival suggests rituals thrive when rooted in community participation. Technology and globalization complicate preservation but also expand reach. Thus, Omikuji today are both ancient practice and evolving heritage. Their continued relevance shows tradition is strongest when flexible yet faithful to roots. For Japan, Omikuji symbolize cultural memory carried into future generations. For the world, they exemplify how small rituals sustain human connection with meaning. Ultimately, Omikuji endure because they adapt, inspire, and invite participation across time. Omikuji's journey from ancient divination to modern adaptation shows tradition's resilience. Each slip of paper embodies centuries of belief, fear, and hope. In shrines, they remain sacred whispers linking humans to divine presence. In cities, they adapt, printed on recyclable paper or displayed on smartphone screens. Both forms reflect continuity, ensuring Omikuji remain relevant across generations. Their resilience lies in flexibility, bending without breaking under social change. Omikuji thus become more than ritual. They are cultural mirrors of Japanese identity. They remind us that heritage survives when people find meaning in its practice. As generations change, Omikuji continue to invite reflection, humility, and connection. Their story is not only Japan's but a universal tale of tradition enduring in modern life. Looking forward, Omikuji's survival will depend on balancing sacred roots with modern relevance. Shrines must engage younger generations without diluting ritual depth. Schools and families can frame Omikuji as tools for teaching values and reflection. Scholars highlight opportunities to use Omikuji in intercultural dialogue. In this sense, they embody not only tradition, but a bridge across societies. The challenge remains preventing over-commercialization that empties spiritual meaning. Preservation efforts must embrace both innovation and fidelity to origins. International recognition may strengthen legitimacy while inspiring global audiences. Ultimately, Omikuji's future depends on participation, meaning, and adaptability. Their story urges us to ask how traditions worldwide can thrive in modern times. Omikuji's narrative closes with a reminder that traditions survive by inspiring meaning. Their small slips hold large questions about destiny, choice, and faith. For worshippers, Omikuji are not predictions, but invitations to reflection. For scholars, they are living archives of cultural adaptation across centuries. For tourists, they are gateways to encounter Japanese spirituality in tangible form. Omikuji thus carry layered roles, bridging sacred, secular, and global contexts. Their endurance shows heritage is strongest when shared and reinterpreted. The slips flutter in temple winds as metaphors of time and resilience. Each fortune drawn connects past generations with those yet to come. Omikuji's story remains unfinished, continuing as long as hands reach for slips. You've just traveled through centuries of Omikuji, from sacred shrines to digital screens. These slips of paper are more than fortunes. They are bridges of culture and memory. If this story gave you new insight, imagine what more lies in Japan's traditions. We're building a journey across shrines, festivals, and hidden rituals. By subscribing, you help us keep these stories alive and bring more to light. Hit the subscribe button and join a community that values history and wonder. Share this film with friends who love culture, anime, or hidden histories. Your support ensures future episodes dive even deeper into Japan's untold heritage. Together, we keep traditions relevant and meaningful in the modern world. Subscribe now, and let's continue this journey into the heart of Japan.